Welcome. Thanks everyone for joining this new member webinar for Trustworthy. I'm Nat Robinson, co-founder and CEO, and joined today by Kyle Adamo here, our director of product, who's going to run the demo for us. I'm going to do a few slides to get started, and then we're going to really focus most of our time and attention on showing you the ins and outs of Trustworthy, giving you some tips and tricks on how to make progress quickly and get into that really organized and prepared state so that you know how to use it as you're onboarding, as you're getting started with Trustworthy, or maybe you'll learn a couple of things if you've already been using it for a couple of months. In terms of what we're solving for, what we see across all the thousands of households that are using Trustworthy is this sort of common problem of, you could call it information overload. They're dealing with hundreds of different important documents across their life, across their family, information in different silos, different accounts, different hundreds of different passwords, and information all over the place. It's all over the place is this phrase that we hear again and again. And that problem isn't going away, right? That we saw what's known as digital transformation sort of accelerate through the pandemic, but it was already happening, and that increasingly information is digital first or digital only. And in that world, where do you keep track of all that important information? It's in your inbox, it's in a drive somewhere, it's in numerous accounts online. How do you remember where it all is? How do you share that with the people and your loved ones and your system who need to know about it? And it turns out that this sort of silo or decentralized, or what we call digital clutter, has some real problems. The average American family now spending more than 50 hours a year trying to stay on top of all the household paperwork. But this crazy number of almost $1,300 if you're not on top of things, if you're not getting things done in time, that you can deal with late fees and penalties and overages and cost to your credit, and the premiums, the insurance went up because you didn't pay it on time and you lapsed. All of this adds up to this crazy big number. It's gone up over the last few years, probably going to keep going up right now, but almost $1,300 for the average American family in those fees and penalties. And then, of course, the mental strain, the anxiety, the tax on you as a person, having to deal with all this upkeep and keep track of things. So some real costs associated with digital clutter and not being on top of things. We looked really across the spectrum before we started and said, okay, what are people using? What are you using? We asked people, what are you using? And we found all kinds of systems, paper-based systems, the phone, the photos on my phone is where I keep important documents. I have a special folder for that. All the productivity tools you can imagine have been thrown at this. And we have found that we tried using some of them. We found they all kind of fell short in the same areas that were pretty critical. So number one was they all start with a blank page. I open a document or an Excel spreadsheet. It's blank. There's no instructions on where to start. What do I need to put into this system? There's no guidance or help. Of course, if I built it, I need to maintain it all forever, indefinitely. The information that I'm putting in there is I might be able to share it, but I'm the only one that knows about it. The system, all the productivity systems aren't looking at that information saying, okay, it looks like there's some things that could be missing in your system. Here's some recommendations to fill those blanks. What about the stuff you already have? Is that really optimal? Could we help you make that better? So instead of building a dumb container, we wanted to build something better than that, something that could help you optimize your system. Temporal sharing was actually a big one. If I share information with you in a spreadsheet, I can't say, just look at rows 1 through 80, but don't look at rows 80 through 100 yet. Look at them later on after I pass away or if something happens to me. You can't really do that in productivity tools. So we wanted to be able to say, hey, I want to share this with you, but I don't want you to be able to see these items yet. We had to deal with, in estate planning, dealing with these kinds of family dynamics is really important so you don't create problems, arguments or rifts. That was a really important consideration. Of course, we wanted this to be incredibly secure and private. And some of the tools that we looked at were like, well, this is a free tool. What are they doing with my information? Is this really secure? Is this really private? And, lots of people had similar concerns. A lot of the free tools don't offer service. We thought that was important. And we just wanted to build something that was purpose-built for family information. Look, we're 60 plus years into the information age. Companies, businesses have tens of thousands of software to manage their information. Families really had nothing, no system of record. That just seemed crazy to us. The things behind, sort of the market forces, if you like, or the things behind Trustworthy are, we talked about digital transformation. We have this big generational shift in wealth that's happening, the great wealth transfer as it's come to be known. Every time I look at a piece of media about this, the number keeps going up. I think it was initially 70 trillion. The number I have is 84 trillion, but I've seen 90 trillion or more of it. Just seems to keep going up. So a lot of money passing from baby boomers to subsequent generations. How is that happening efficiently, or is that happening efficiently? Climate change. We've heard so much this year about climate change related disasters. Just this week in Kentucky and Arkansas, people dying related to tornadoes and massive weather storms, wildfires in LA earlier this year. Seems like we're on a trajectory for one of the biggest years in climate change related disasters. And we want to help people be prepared for that ahead of the disaster, not after the fact. But that's a thing that's on people's minds right now. And then of course, mental health, now the number one medical concern or health concern in the United States. How do we help people have more peace of mind, really? But less anxiety. Anxiety is bad for you, right? More peace of mind is good. So we built something that's a system for families. It's safe, easy, and contemporary, a modern way to store, access, and share important family documents across their ecosystems. Certainly the inner circle of loved ones and trustees, guardians, and then the outer circle of advisors, trusted advisors, which could be anyone. Generally tends to be an estate planning advisor, an accountant, a wealth advisor, maybe a realtor, daily money manager, business manager. Really, it could be anyone based on your family and your ecosystem. We've seen nannies, babysitters, agents in the entertainment, sports industries, really anyone who might need access to some of your information or a lot of it at some period of point in time. And the big use cases for families are, we just want access to our information the moment we need it. I don't want to have to wait to go back home to find it. I just need the VIN number for the car. I just need my wife's social security number or the kids' passport numbers. How do I get that in the moment that I need it? Of course, beyond those day-to-day use cases, what if something would have happened to me? If I get hit by a bus, will my family know where to go to find the treasure map and have continuity of everything because they know where it all is? And we've seen this sort of bifurcation of responsibility in modern households where, one partner will manage one set of things, another partner will manage the kind of black boxes on either side of the house. How do we bring that whole picture together? Beyond those big use cases, the biggest one that's emerged is, I love this for me and my household, but I really want this for my parents, or my in-laws are completely disorganized. How do I get something like Trustworthy for them? How do I get them set up? Their timeline seems even more urgent. Mom or dad has had some healthcare issues or some cognitive decline. Let's get this done now. So those are the big use cases. And the system that we built really evolves around a lot of facility and curation and making that easy and effortless and automatic for you. A lot of security and privacy baked into everything that we build. An AI component that helps you automatically analyze your documents and understand them, summarize them, extract all the metadata so you don't have to type a lot of information in. And then, of course, we talked about collaboration, sharing with all the folks in your system. And then looking at ways to make your system better, looking at where the blanks are. We call this optimization, but looking at where the blanks are and helping you do all those things that you might want to do with your information. Maybe you want to get a trust. Maybe you want to get life insurance. Maybe you're just renewing your passport or your driver's license, or making sure that you're on top of your life insurance premiums. Whatever it is, Trustworthy helps keep everything up to date and keep you on track with a system of reminders that tell you when to do things so that you don't lapse, so that you don't get out of compliance across your life. And if you have a business, we can do that with your business as well. All right, so that's enough from me. I'm sure you just want to see it at work. I'm going to hand over to Kyle, and he's going to lead you through some of the ways that experts use Trustworthy to get everything dialed in for their families and their loved ones.
Thanks, Nat. What I'm going to do is I've started with a brand new account. I've done nothing in my Trustworthy yet. I want to sort of step you through how I typically see people get up and running in Trustworthy. I'm logged into our web app right now, but also know that I've got an iOS app that I'm going to jump into as well. You can look for that in the App Store, or the Google Play Store, you'll find our Android app as well. And we'll jump into mobile for various moments here. I've got a few other tabs open in my browser. I'm going to jump into these as we go through because there's a few key concepts that are important to know about. What I'd recommend when you're brand new to Trustworthy, one thing that you're going to see when you log in is these getting started cards. These are good for feature discovery to sort of understand what are the different options that are out there for Trustworthy. And each of these will guide you through something that we think is important. When it comes to starting with Trustworthy, what I'd recommend adding is your people. That could be family members or other contacts. And then things like cars, real estate, get those in first, and then start to work through things like insurance and trusts and businesses. Let's talk about a person. And we've got this idea of family IDs in our system. And one of the things that we want you to do is to add a driver's license into sort of your family ID inside Trustworthy. When you sort of first created your account, we asked for the names of the household. And what it did is it created the people in your household. If you didn't fill in the customization thing, you can add them on the fly here. But I want to go through this tour on the dashboard to show you an important feature that we call Autopilot. And it'll sort of give you a sense of what it's capable of. And then we'll broaden our look and we'll look at all sorts of other files that we can bring in different ways we can add files to Trustworthy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Add Driver's License. And it's going to guide me through where to go to do that. So it takes me into family IDs. I'm logged in as David Reynolds. I'm the account owner. So it's saying, hey, open up your family ID item. Once I get in here, what it wants you to do is to upload your driver's license. There's a lot of different ways to do this. If you have a digital version of this, like a photo of it, you can drag that in. I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to drag that from my computer. So let me grab David's license. And you can just drop it on top of this little front side. The important part is what's happening now. We're analyzing this file, and with every file that goes in, we're going to analyze it with something called Autopilot to help you fill in the field. So if you wait a few moments, it's going to sort of pop up what we call autofills. And these autofills will try and extract data from a file and fill in the fields that we think you need to populate here. So I can click Accept All on these autofills. So it's recommending a few pieces of information. And what it does is it populates the data here. If there's anything else that we need to fill in that it didn't get, we can add it here as well. Okay, so it's showing me that it's like captured that information. The other thing that it's done automatically is it's created a reminder, and this is going to be a theme that you'll see throughout. Many documents we're going to analyze to come up with reminders so that you're always on top of the things that are expiring. Nat had mentioned this, sort of the financial costs of not being on top of things, whether it be expired licenses or getting rush passport renewals and things like that. So do take a look at these tours and follow them through. They'll guide you through some of the feature functionality. Now that I've got this file in here, any file in Trustworthy, you can preview it just by clicking on it. So if I click on that, it's also going to point my attention to something called Share. And with things like ID cards, these are ones that we find are commonly shared for life moments. So let's say you're doing a mortgage renewal and you're working with a broker. One of the things they're going to ask you for is a copy of your license. In fact, they might ask you for a copy of your license front and back. So if you've got the back of your driver's license, you can always drag it in here as well, and it's going to store that for you. But let's get back to sharing for a moment. So when I go into sharing, what I can do is click on Share for this file. And I can determine how long do I want to make this available for. You're not going to invite your broker into Trustworthy as a collaborator. That's something we'll talk about in a minute. But you might want to share this temporarily. And let's say your broker is working on this. You want to generate a link. You can generate this link and share it with your broker. They'll be able to access your IDs, the front and back of that ID. Let me just copy this so you can see what it looks like here. So what your broker will get is a double-sided ID card here. And they'll be able to do whatever they need to do, background check on you as well before they do the refinance. So any sort of file that you want to share, there's a quick and easy way to share that file with someone temporarily, and you'll get a notification as soon as they click it. And then that link will expire after an hour or whatever date you set it to.
Kyle, this is a more secure way than just attaching something to email, right? Yeah. This is a secure way that you can control access through that link. You can turn off the link if you want to. You can set the link for a period of time. We created this feature to sort of encourage people to be in a more secure posture with their information, right? To help them not just attach things to email and send it off into the ether, but to sort of maintain control around that information for really better security.
That's exactly it. And I think it's like an incremental step forward. Historically, what I did before Trustworthy is I would snap a photo of my license. I would send it to whoever's asking for it over email. I don't know this person. It sits in their inbox forever. We did an analysis on some inboxes, and I found my license 6 times to 6 different recipients in my sent items. So it's out there in a lot of different people's inboxes, which is not ideal. So now that I've done that step, I've uploaded that license. That card is no longer on my getting started, and we're going to recommend the next thing to do, which is collaboration. Before we get into collaboration, I want to talk about getting files into Trustworthy and sort of getting going and starting to build things out. And then we'll look at collaboration. One thing I did just a moment ago is I uploaded a file I had it on my machine. I just uploaded it. Oftentimes when I see people get up and running, they're in this sort of collection phase where they're collecting files. They just want to get them into Trustworthy. They don't want to worry about where it's going to go and file it away in Trustworthy. They just want to get it there and get it secured. And then they'll put on their filing hat and they'll go into Trustworthy and move everything to the right spot. In order to do that, I want to tap into something that we have called the inbox. And the inbox is sort of a great tool to help you secure your files quickly without thinking about, where is it going to go in Trustworthy? How am I going to organize this? Just get it there. And then our Autopilot is going to analyze it and come up with suggestions that help you take that file and put it in the right spot. So I've got a few files already on my machine. I'm going to bulk upload these files into this inbox. And then I'm going to show you some other ways you can get stuff into the inbox, which are super convenient. So let me do this. I'm going to grab a passport from David Reynolds. Let's do medical insurance. And how about a couple vehicles? All right. So I'm moving a bunch of files over. You can also see that I can drop a file anywhere onto my dashboard or my home page. If you're on any other page in Trustworthy and you've got this inbox open, you can drag them there. Both of them go to the same place. So I'm going to move these files in here, and I might go off and go into a different folder. Maybe I've got some in Dropbox. Maybe I've got some in email, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I want to forward those into Trustworthy. You can go find all these files everywhere and send them to your inbox, and then come back later when you're ready to start organizing things. And our Autopilot will have made suggestions and analyze these files. So while we're in here, let's take a look at what Autopilot's done. So I uploaded 4 different files, 2 vehicle registration cards, medical insurance, and a passport. One thing that we do is when we analyze these files, we also analyze everything that's in Trustworthy to figure out, is this a new thing I need to add, or is this something that already exists and I just need to help you move it there? In the case of David Reynolds, he's already exists in Trustworthy. And what it's going to say is open, which is going to just jump me over to where this file should go. So it takes me to David Reynolds' family ID page. And I see that I've got an empty passport slot. And here's what I got to do. I have to drag the file out of the inbox and put it into this passport spot. So we're emptying our inbox and moving stuff over. You'll see these autofill things that show up. They're like, we've analyzed this file. Here's the things that we can fill in for you. You can review and accept. It's going to populate that passport. And in this case, it created another reminder as well. And these reminders, yeah, go ahead.
How did it know that that document belonged to that person?
Yeah, it does a lot of analysis in the case of family IDs, it's going to analyze the name, and our AI is going to reason about who this belongs to. Even if you have a nickname or something like that, it's going to do its best to sort of match it up with the person. So we're always trying to look for things that match existing data that's in here. Like an insurance policy, if I uploaded that, it's going to look for other policies that exist with the same policy number and recommend a match with them there. And in some other cases, like these ones here, this is a great example. I've uploaded this vehicle registration card. We do have a spot for vehicles inside our property category. We've got this whole category called property, which is real estate and vehicles and valuables. It knows that this vehicle doesn't exist. I've never added it to Trustworthy. So instead of saying open, what it's saying is add. And what it's going to do is create a page a page in Trustworthy for where I'm going to store this vehicle. So it creates a new vehicle in my property category. I've got all these empty fields, but we're going to help you fill those in. Now that I've created this page, I just want to drag this file to this registration block right here, and I'm going to drop it. And then it's going to fill in all the data that it found, everything from make, model, serial number, VIN numbers, who the driver or the owner is, and I can click accept all, and it fills in everything. Okay, so it's got it linked up to David Reynolds, who's one of my family members. It figured out that relationship just by some of the names that are in there. If I want to give this, one thing that's important to know is like these titles that you see at the top, when you browse into any one of these categories and you see this collection of these different tiles, that name is important sometimes for sort of quickly scanning through these and understanding what they are. If you never refer to this as your Toyota Sienna and you want to call this SUV, you can call it that. Okay, and it's going to be reflected here. So you can easily call this David's car or Laura's car, or whatever you want to do. But by default, it's going to try and give names to things. I can do the same with this other one over here that's in my inbox. And I'm going to move this over, and this is a different car. This is a 2008 Toyota Yaris, and it's going to populate that. And this one's linked up to Laura. This was her car. And you can see it's created a reminder on this as well. Okay, and these reminders get circulated via email, and shortly we'll be pushing them out by push notifications on mobile as well. So you'll get enough lead time on these reminders. Okay, so that gives you a sense of like how these things can work, how the inbox can help you get there. You don't have to rely 100% on sending stuff into your inbox in order for it to generate these tiles. One thing that our system is doing is when you first created your account and we asked you for the members of the household and their ages, it created what's called pre-populated tiles. These are sort of placeholders for the things that households of your makeup typically have, so that you're never starting with a blank page. If you don't know where to start, you can scan through some of these categories and take a look at these items that are in here. And if you have this item, like I'm going to add a savings account for Laura, I can just click on it and it's going to guide you through in almost like a wizard all the different steps that you can go through. You can also import from Plaid, which we'll look at in a second. But I can say add manually, and maybe this is a Chase bank account, and it's going to step you through a number of details on filling in this information. And anytime you're done or you want to give up and you don't want to fill in the rest of the stuff, you can just hit your back button, and now that account is in there. Okay, and next time you click into it, you'll get this page and you can add more details to it, link up any contacts and things like that. So let's do this. There's an important part that I want to jump into as far as getting files into the system. A lot of us are getting data into our email, and we've got attachments in our email that are critical. I might have insurance policies. I could have mortgage information. I could have closing disclosures on real estate transactions. All sorts of things could be in your inbox. We have this capability called email to inbox, and there's a card here that draws your attention to it as far as getting started. If you click on this card, you're going to see an email address. And what you want to do with this address is, this is your own private address for your account. Anything file that you email to this address will land in your inbox inside Trustworthy, where it's going to be analyzed and we're going to make suggestions on it. And then you can come back to it later to file it in the right spot. In order for this to work pretty seamlessly, what I like to recommend to people is copy this email and go add it to whatever your contact manager is that you use. Meaning when I'm composing an email and I'm typing in the to field, your contact should show up in there. And we want this inbox address to show up in there. So it's really easy to add or forward stuff to Trustworthy, whether it's on desktop or your iPhone or Android device. So I've copied this. I happen to be, a Google user, so I can create a contact inside my Google contacts. And I'm going to call this Trustworthy Inbox. I'll call it demo because I've got many accounts and I just want to make sure I'm clear which one's which. I'm going to paste that email address in there and save it. If you're on Apple contacts, you would add it there. If you're a Microsoft user, you might have Outlook contacts, you can add it there. What this helps us do is anytime I'm interacting with an email, one of these emails I have open, I can forward an email with attachments on it. So here's an email that had a couple life insurance policies on it. I can choose to forward this, and here's my inbox demo I just created. And all I need to do is send that. And what's going to happen is it's going to send that email along to that address. We're going to pull those attachments and store them securely. And then we're going to push them into your inbox so that you can deal with them later and file them later. So if you remember, I only had this one file remaining in here from the previous files that I uploaded. In a few moments, you're going to see a couple new files pop in here, and then our system's going to start to analyze them. Here they come. So they've just landed. We're going to start to analyze them and come up with a plan as to what to do with these. We're going to scan your data, see if you already have these insurance policies. If not, we're going to help you add them. Okay, so as it's doing its thing here, you can still preview files that are in your inbox, if you want to read through them and get familiar with what they are. You can download files from here. You can print them from here. Anytime you preview a file, you've got these different options to interact with the preview. You can see here it's extracted a number of details from this. So it's knows a lot about the premium, knows some dates, policy numbers. It's written a summary about it. Every file, we're going to also recommend a file name to make it more searchable in our system.
Yeah. Sometimes AI does a great job, most of the time. Sometimes it'll get one of these fields a little wrong. What do I do if I notice something that's like, oh, that policy number is not quite right, or maybe the scan that I had was like low quality and I couldn't get it. How do I deal with that kind of situation if AI is not 100%?
Yeah, that's a good call out. So anytime that we have a file that we've analyzed, you'll see this little badge on here that's a details badge. And this holds a lot of data about the file. This is stuff the AI extracted, it reasoned about what this file was, and it pulled out some key facts about it. Especially if you have handwritten files, or sometimes they're really scrunched together and the AI can't interpret them. Sometimes it might get things wrong. If you see something that's wrong in here, let's say the policy number, this was supposed to be an S and not a 5 at the end. I can click on edit, come in here, change that to an S, and then save. And that's the extent of it. What it's going to do is like reanalyze everything after that change is made to make sure that that policy number doesn't mean it matches to an existing policy. So I've got that data in there. I was able to edit it. And then in the case of this particular one, it's a net new life insurance policy. I can click on add, and I can just drag it over to the policy block in here, and it's going to do the autofills again. It's going to fill in all these different details. Okay, and you can see that policy number now is reflected with the S instead of the 5.
Cool. I like it. Are you still doing curation? Are you going to do mobile curation next?
Yeah, let's jump into mobile. We can talk also about our Chrome extension, which has some use cases as well, just to give you all the different ways that people can get data in to Trustworthy. And then we'll talk a bit about collaboration and search.
I've got some collaboration hacks for folks when you get there.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll do that in a minute. We have to talk about mobile because it's a big part of what people are doing. So I've got my iOS app here. I'm just going to log into that as well. Actually, you know what? In behind, I'll open the inbox so we can see as things come out of my iOS app and into my inbox as I scan items. Your mobile app is Trustworthy in your pocket. It's got your biometrics set up so you can get into it easily. That's your Face ID or your fingerprint, depending on what platform you're on. It defaults to one or the other. iOS is heavily into Face ID. You'll see anything that's in your inbox here. You'll see all of your data. You can search for it. One of the common use cases that people lean on the app for when they're getting started or throughout their Trustworthy journey is scanning items as they come in through your mail, let's say, or I'm going through a filing cabinet and I'm pulling files out to scan them to sort of get these digital backups in place. What I'm going to do is let me see if I've got a mouse hooked up here to my iPhone, which is always fun, just so you can see where I'm clicking. Scanning is a huge part of this. So let's say I've got a new insurance declaration page that came in from my auto insurance provider. I want to scan that and get that into Trustworthy. I use this all the time. You can use a lot of different ways that you can upload files, but scan is very common. And this will allow you to point at a file. It'll get a scan on it. You can flip it over and do another page if you want. If it's just a single page, you can just click the save button and it's going to upload this file and secure it in Trustworthy. What it does, and you can see over on my web app behind, it's pushed it into the inbox. So it's already there, it's been secured, but AI is analyzing it. It's going to do the analysis here on iOS as well. And you can see one of the similar things that it's doing here is it's suggesting that we add a new auto insurance policy. Okay. And in the same sort of way, on the desktop, we were dragging and dropping things to where they need to be. On mobile, we're going to pick the spot where we think this file should go. So I can say attach. It's going to move it over there. And it's got these autofill opportunities that we've seen on the other platform as well, where you can decide the things that you want to autofill, and then you can populate your solution. This null thing is a bug that we're working on right now. Okay, so it fills in my policy detail. It links it up to people. If I already had my vehicles in here that were on this policy, it would have linked them up as well. But all that's done from your iOS device. You can give it a better name at the top and maybe call this Geico Insurance. You can use your I use my transcription all the time on my keyboard. I use the mic to not have to type because I'm like that. So that's how you can scan things with iOS. It's great for these one-offs that you need to pull in there. And as soon as you've added things to Trustworthy, I love using the mobile app while I'm on the go to find data that I need. Maybe I need the VIN number for my Yaris. I can just search for the Yaris, tap into it, and go to that VIN number that's on here if I needed it for something. This came up for me recently, so it's pretty top of mind.
Yeah, I use this a lot for receipts. When you get a paper receipt, if you still get a paper receipt, I just found out that paper receipts are pretty toxic. Did you know that? The whole science around how toxic paper receipts are, if they use a certain kind of ink. So it's a good reason not to keep paper receipts. But usually I'm like, I don't want to deal with that paper. I'll take a quick scan of the receipt, go straight to Trustworthy. I can throw out the piece of paper or anything that comes in the mail. It's super useful.
Yeah, there's a question here that I think is worthwhile addressing before we get too far beyond it. Jacques was asking about what happened to the emails that you sent to the inbox. So a couple of things happened on our end. Once we've pulled the attachment, we've secured it in the vault. The emails are disposed of, so we don't retain those. We grab the file and it's stored in your secure vault. And the email data is, your email is still in your sent items though. You'll still find that email in your sent items. You'll also get a confirmation email back from us once we've received the file, and if everything went smoothly, we'll let you know that file's landed in your inbox. If there was an error of some kind, let's say there was no attachment on the email, you'll get an email back saying, hey, there was no attachment. We're only dealing with attachments. That's sort of an important designation. When you forward an email, we're only going to pull the attachments off there. We're not going to store the email body or do anything with that yet. We are working on some new mechanisms to understand all of your email, but for now it's just attachments. So typically PDFs or things like PNGs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Jacques has a follow-up question. I think that's super relevant to sort of curation. He said, if you're negotiating to sell your house, you want to save different draft purchase agreements. Yes. One way, Jacques, that I just sold a house recently in San Francisco, and I asked all the realtors and all the folks that I worked with, the title company, to use my Trustworthy email ID and copy it on everything that they were sending me. So everything that, you get so many emails and so many documents you have to sign, everything that got attached to those emails was automatically copied. My Trustworthy email was copied and automatically ingested into the inbox. So I was able to quickly drag it into a folder that was specific to this transaction. And now I have this amazing archive of every single document I had to look at or sign across that transaction. So that's one really efficient way to make sure that instead of you having to forward each individual email, just copy your Trustworthy email on anything that you want to grab, and it will get captured in Trustworthy.
There's a interesting note here that's worthwhile talking about. It's a feature that we often don't get into early on when getting people up and running in Trustworthy, but I think it's worthwhile, especially when talking about drafts or receipts or invoices and things like that. When you look at something like a home, I've got a basic home set up here, not much other info. We have this sort of default place to store additional files on this home, but I often recommend that people create subfolders here. So you might create a subfolder for closing docs, and this might be where your different drafts will go. And then you might create another subfolder called, I don't know, contractor invoices. You might have utility invoices. And then as those files start to come in, you start to send them to Trustworthy. You can store them in these subfolders. So for example, I've got a buyer's disclosure. Maybe I'll put this in my closing docs folder. Okay, if I have invoices, I can move them there. Or if they're coming in over email, I can just forward them to the inbox and then move them over to the subfolder where I want to store them.
Receipts,
searchable
right?
later. Yeah.
Receipts for like big ticket items in your home. This is a big issue during the LA fires, is people having not just pictures of things, but like evidence that they'd purchased it. How much was the original purchase? So anything that you buy for this, in this case, it's a home, you could put a receipt in here, have a folder just for that kind of stuff, and make it really easy to retrieve all those big ticket items in case there's an incident.
Let's talk about, early on, I said that the sort of the first things you should probably think about adding to Trustworthy are the people. So we've talked about people as far as family members. These are your direct family members. It could be spouses and children. Every family is sort of different, so your family ID section might look different. The other types of people that are worth talking about getting into the system early is something called contacts. Contacts can be linked to anything. They could be companies that are utility companies that your home, your property really interacts with. They could be contractors. They could be beneficiaries. They could be trustees, you name it. You can manually add contacts, or if you're on your mobile device, for example, you can import from there, or you can also import on desktop, which I'll show you in a minute as well. Let me just look at mobile for a second. What I like about mobile is it makes it pretty easy to import contacts. So if I go over to my contacts section and I say, add my first contact, import from device, accept all the permissions, I can choose who I want to import from here.
Kyle, should we be seeing your mobile screen right now?
You should be. I don't know why you're not. Interesting. Okay. Trust me, I just imported some contacts.
Here's one I baked earlier.
Yeah. But let me refresh because I just did some on. Let me do this from desktop then. So we can import contacts from a vCard or VCF file. So if you go into say your Google contacts or Apple contacts or Outlook contacts, you can export as a vCard or VCF file, and then I can bring them into Trustworthy. So it's brought in a bunch of contacts that I imported. These really basic ones, but you could have everything from email addresses and addresses and things like that. So once these items are in here, what's nice about that is you can, let's say I'm in a home and I wanted to link up a contact, maybe a property manager, I could do that. If I have contacts in my system that are like utility companies, I can add them in here as well, maybe energy service, and I want to pick all of your contacts will show up here. So if P&G Electric is in here, I could pick them. I happen to just have these 3 contacts in here now, but you can link contacts up to anything. And where I find those to be pretty powerful is with some legal documents like trusts. Let me move a trust into my system and show you some of what this does. So I'm just dragging a trust in here. I'm going to let the system analyze it, tell me where to file it, and it's going to autofill a bunch of things. And it's going to scan through my contacts to see, are these trustees, are these beneficiaries, are these, here, let's see what comes back. So it's saying I should add a new trust based on this document that's in here. It's found a lot of different details in here, trustees and beneficiaries. But when I go through this add capability, it's going to create a new page inside my legal category. I can move the trust to like the formation documents or any one of these blocks, and then it's going to pull in some of these details and start to link people up. So it's got my grantors and beneficiaries. It can pull in things like trustees. It didn't do that this time. I think it was still cached. I can pull in attorneys. That's why we have these contacts in here, just to allow this more rich interaction where you can link all the people up to the things that you could build this great profile on a trust or a property or whatever it might be. Let's talk about collaboration. I think that's an important time now that we're talking about the people in Trustworthy. Most commonly, the type of collaborator we see people invite is a spouse or most trusted loved one, but also we're seeing a lot of pickup where people are inviting their professionals. These could be wealth advisors or money managers. They could be estate planners. They could be CPAs and accountants and things like that. You could also invite those types of people. Let's first talk about the scenario where you're inviting maybe a trusted loved one, like a spouse. Obviously, you're seeing this card here that we've seen before. It's sort of, we're trying to drive your attention to something that we know is pretty valuable. If I click on it, it's going to tell you where you can go to start to add these collaborators. One thing that we see a lot of, and I just want to take a moment to talk about this, is when it comes to inviting someone, especially like a spouse, a lot of people don't want to invite them until everything's perfect. That's a mistake. That person that you want to invite is going to be able to help you get things up and running. When I think about in my household and my wife, she had all the information about the kids. I had information about banks. She had separate bank accounts for her and separate insurance policies. So instead of me having to go bug her to get everything perfect, to get all the data in there, I can just invite her, give her a bit of a tutorial, and then she's off to the races and can help me get stuff set up. So invite people early and often into your system. And we'll talk about permissions in a second. Before we do that, let's go to Nat. He's got his hand up.
Oh, so here are my hacks. We don't really cover this in terms of curation. Like, okay, there's a Chrome plugin, there's a mobile app, there's drag and drop, there's lots of ways. We even have an integration with the ScanSnap scanner. If you have a scanner, you have lots of multi-page documents. You can send those straight to the inbox as well. So there's lots of ways, but this is really, I have 2 tips for you. This is an underserved way to get your account set up quickly is exactly what Kyle's saying. Invite people and ask them to do something on your behalf. Can certainly be your partner if they own a certain set of information across your household, but it can be almost anyone. And in particular, the folks who probably know a lot about you, your advisors, certainly an accountant if they have tax returns. I know my accountant loves Trustworthy because he was able to upload tax returns for the last 10 years. And every time I say, hey, Juan, where's that tax return from 2022? He's like, you know where it is. It's in your Trustworthy account. He's really happy he doesn't have to dig through his file system and find it for me and send it to me again every time I'm trying to do a transaction, prove something. Both sides will love this, and people who already work for you can do work on your behalf in helping you setting this up. And now they're collaborating in the system. For the next, for accounting, for example, for tax returns, hey, I keep all the files that I collect all year long in the tax section of Trustworthy. Juan can see those coming in. He can figure out if I need to do payments throughout the year. And at the end of the year, when it's time to pay, he has all the files already. He knows exactly where to go to find those files and file my tax returns. So it makes that whole sort of round robin experience very easy for both sides and in perpetuity. But in terms of getting set up, that's a great consideration, is invite people, exactly what Kyle was saying, to help you this many hands makes light work idea. The second reason is financial. So if you have advisors like a wealth advisor or an accountant or a estate planning attorney, and you're just getting started, maybe you're on the free account, or maybe you're already paying for a subscription. But the idea here is, if you invite these professionals, they're going to discover Trustworthy, and more often than not, they'll reach out to us and say, hey, this client invited me, and I want to pick up the tab for their account. I want to pay for their account as long as they're a client with me. That could be based around a transaction, or it could be based around advice that they're giving you ongoingly. And we often see this happen. So if you don't want to pay for your own Trustworthy account subscription, this is the fantastic way to get it done. Invite one of these professionals, and more often than not, that not only will they pick up the check for you as long as you're in service with them, but they'll then say, I have 900 other clients that I think could really benefit from Trustworthy. I'd love to buy this on behalf of those clients as well. So it's a great way to get your account for free. And, it obviously helps Trustworthy as a business grow and more people discover it. And other friends can get Trustworthy for free as well.
So let's go through, now that we've talked about some of the reasons to add collaborators. I just want to show you some of the permissions that are in there that I think are important. So I'm going to click on this invite. This is going to take me into a collaborator area, effectively where I'll show you where it's taken me in a moment. A couple things that are happening here when we're going to choose a collaborator. We can promote someone who already exists as an entity in Trustworthy. These could be family members or contacts. We can promote them to become a collaborator, or you can add a net new person to invite them. Let me start with Laura Reynolds, and I'm going to invite Laura in here. So the next screen is pretty important. There's different levels here. So full access is someone who's going to have access to everything, same as you as the account owner. Typically, with spouses, this is often the case. You'll invite them as full access. With someone who's a professional, though, let's say they're a CPA that you're working with, you might choose partial access. And then from here, what you can do is you can scope their permissions to something really specific. It could be the finance category. It could be maybe they're going to deal with the taxes category as well. You can get even more granular. So if you didn't want them to have access to everything in finance, let's say, you can actually come in here and say, you know what, they're only going to have access to Laura's stuff. And you can scope them down to that. So what happens when they log in is they'll only see the categories or the items that you've given them access to. Okay. The idea of legacy access is important as well. Someone can be a partial access collaborator and legacy access. What legacy access means is this is a person who you've designated as sort of a legacy access who could take over your account in the event of your passing. They don't have to be a collaborator yet. You could just invite them as legacy access. They'll get an email saying, hey, David Reynolds is using Trustworthy. Here's what it is. Here's why you've been chosen. Please click to verify your email. Then we know that they're reachable at that email address. We've got a record of them. And if something were to happen to you, these legacy access providers can reach out to trigger an identity verification step on our end. So we'll verify the documents that they have that prove that the account owner's passed away. And then we'll step them through identity verification and reach out to some of the other collaborators and contacts in the system to vet them before giving them access to the system. So I can send the invitation, and this will go out to Laura. She'll get an email saying that she's been invited, and I can join the account. You can also, let me just pull over a different account that I have running here. I just want to show a key concept here. So let's say you have your own Trustworthy account. You contact your sister and tell her about Trustworthy. She's like, oh, I love Trustworthy. I'm going to get my own account too. And I'm going to invite you as a collaborator to my account. That means that under the same email address, you can flip back and forth between your account and your sister's account. So I'm logged in here as David Reynolds into my own account. My sister invited me. When I've been invited as a collaborator and I've got access to multiple accounts, I get the switch household option, and then I can jump into the McKinley account and I can go help out Laura McKinley, do whatever I need to do there, access data, put new data in there, and then I can flip back to my own account. So just know that there's no limit to how many accounts you can have access to. We've got some professionals we call Trustworthy Certified Experts that work with multiple clients of ours to help them get up and running. Some of them will have a whole page full of accounts that they collaborate on. All right, let me go back to my other account here. I want to step into some of these questions here because I saw another one come through. The government subpoena question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We get this from time to time. We can't see your information, so there's no way for us to say, we know who this user is and here's their information, right? So we have a zero knowledge setup by design, right? That we don't want to see your information. Only our philosophy is that you are the arbiter of your information. Only you as an account holder can choose who to share access with. So that's one component. Now, our infrastructure today is based solely in the US. We're across 2 different data centers, East and West, with our partner. And the reason we have 2 is occasionally one of them goes down and we fail over to the other. One of the things we're looking at introducing is in the next 12 months is the ability for you to decide which country your data will live in. And this is a request we get from time to time from different nationalities in Europe, different folks in Canada, different parts of the world who say, oh, I don't really want my data stored in the US for whatever reasons, or inversely, I don't want my data stored in Canada or Europe. I want it stored in the US. And so we intend to give folks that choice. Hey, where do you want your data to be in Switzerland, for example? So we're looking at introducing those options in the next 12 months. Something we've already scoped. We're excited to offer it. And you will have that choice in the not too distant future. Today, everything is based in the US. But as far as we're concerned, we can't see your data. If the government were to come to us and say, oh, we want this person's data, we'd say, okay, that person might be a user, but we can't see any of their data in order to give it to you. And beyond that, it's a legal battle, as we've seen play out at different technology companies.
All right. I know we're running up against time. One thing I wanted to point out before we get too far, or before we run out of time, is like this idea of personalizing things inside Trustworthy. Any of these items that you see, you'll see some of them get icons associated with them, like this bank account, vehicles, etc. You can upload photos to be a profile picture on anything. So for example, when I click into David Reynolds, I can go and upload a file there. I think I've got one here. So let me drop a file. And what this does, it sort of personalizes your Trustworthy. Now you've got these thumbnails for the people on here. And this is always a nice touch to personalize your account. You can put your homes and vehicle pictures in there. Anything that you want, you can upload a photo as these profiles. That's sort of a nice way to customize things and put a personal touch on it.
We got a follow-up question from Eliza. I hope I'm saying that right. Will users be able to have some data stored in one jurisdiction and some in another? That's a great question. Eliza, I'd love to understand that use case a little bit better. Feel free to send us an email, nat@trustworthy.com. I'd like to understand that one better. We haven't scoped that today, but one way to do that would be to have 2 accounts potentially. Right now, we haven't. I'd like to understand the use case better before we commit to it. Just email nat@trustworthy.com or kyle@trustworthy.com. We'd love to learn more about that.
So one thing to point out, because I know we're running out of time, after this is over, we're going to obviously have a recording of this. We'll be circulating it around to the people who registered. The other thing to note is help.trustworthy.com is a great resource for all sorts of things and knowledge about Trustworthy. There's videos and instructional tools in here about collaboration, your apps, anything that you might want to think of. Not everything that we covered is in there. It's a work in progress. We're always adding more. So do bookmark this page, help.trustworthy.com. And this is a great resource to get access to support. The other thing to keep in mind is this chat bubble inside Trustworthy. Chat in here. This will send a message to our support team. You'll be able to work with an AI bot first if you want to not talk to somebody. Like a lot of us don't like talking to people. You can work with AI. It'll try and find the answer for you. If not, it'll route you to someone on our team to help answer questions. That's a great way to get support from Trustworthy, as well as emailing support@trustworthy.com. Yeah, go ahead, Nat.
What if I'm really busy and person and I would love to have this set up for my family, but I just don't have time to do it myself? What are my options?
I happen to have a tab open for this. We've got at the top of our trustworthy.com webpage, under resources, there's something called Work with an Expert. I touched on this earlier. We have a group of hundreds of different experts from all over North America in different major centers who come out of backgrounds like professional organizing, some death doulas. These are estate people who help with estate transitions. They're move managers, money managers. They've been trained on Trustworthy. They've been background checked. They're experts at working with our customers to help them get through this digital transformation. And they can do everything, like, depending on where you are, they could show up at your house and help you scan things. They can, you can invite them as a collaborator to your account, and they can move everything from your inbox to its right spot. They can do a lot to help you. They can even just train you on Trustworthy or train your whole family on how everything works. So you can reach out to any one of these. You can search by location or different classifications of people, and you can reach out to them to book a session with them. And they can come up with a plan as to how they can help you and determine your needs.
And if I live in California, but my parents live in Massachusetts, can I find someone to work with my parents?
Yes. Depending on what states, what I typically do, and that's sort of a common situation. I wish I could have outsourced working with my dad on getting Trustworthy set up for him. So you can find someone based in wherever your parents are. If, let's say, you think they're going to need help with, let's do Michigan, for example. I can search for various people in Michigan. I can reach out to these Trustworthy certified experts to see if they're a fit. Depending on your needs, if you need them to be physically present and they're nearby your parents, they can probably arrange that as well. So this is a good way to sort of, especially if there's great distance, physical distance between you and your parents, you can have this person fill in the gaps and help your parents get up and running without some of the emotional trauma that might come from helping your parents with technology.
Yeah. And if you don't find someone, we can usually source someone and get them trained up pretty fast and get them background checked pretty fast if you don't find an exact match for your town or nearby town. I think we're going to wrap up. We're right at time. I want to be respectful of people's time. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I think this was a great session. Hopefully you got some useful information. If not, you can always reach us, support@trustworthy.com. If you want to talk to a live person, there's live people there. If you don't want to talk to a live person, there's an AI there. Lots of options for getting to the next stage. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.